The German supplement market hit roughly 2.3 billion euros at retail last year. That kind of steady growth is pulling in a wave of new entrants, direct-to-consumer scale-ups, retail private labels, and pharma carve-outs, looking for their piece of the pie. But most of these new teams tackle sourcing completely backward. They Google best supplement manufacturer Germany, grab a stack of business cards at VitaFoods, and blast out unstructured quote requests to everyone they can find. What comes back is a mess. You end up spending 4 months trying to compare apples to pears quotes, and because your initial spec was loose, you've essentially handed control of your formula over to whatever the factory happens to have running on their lines. That lack of early control translates to a painful invoice. Fixing these errors after the ink is dry typically costs between 40 and 120,000 euros in lost runway and emergency reformulation. Successful sourcing in Germany requires treating the search as a rigid regulatory design problem. Prioritizing a quick manufacturer signature over a structured process creates fatal liabilities that outweigh any perceived speed to market. Part of the trap is how the category looks from the outside. In Germany, supplements sit under food law, not pharma law. But operationally, the bar you have to clear is much closer to pharma than it is to making candy. There are roughly 150 active contract manufacturers operating in Germany right now, and the gap between the strongest and the weakest is wider than in any other European market. This forces a clear trade-off. You can either rush to get 20 emails out the door today, or you can retain tight operational control over your product. You cannot do both. The safer route is to use a structured 6-step workflow. This process systematically filters those 150 candidates down to a highly reliable, signature-ready shortlist in about 14 working days. Surviving the German market means your sourcing strategy has to focus on safely eliminating unqualified factories before you ever ask for a single price quote. Step 1 is locking your product specification. Before you speak to a single vendor, get your format, dosage, target claims, and retail price down on one single page. If you leave the spec loose, you triple the size of your candidate list and waste weeks. This flowchart maps our second step, filtering by GMP regime based strictly on where your product will actually be sold. You have 3 distinct retail destinations. If you are targeting drugstores and supermarkets, IFS Food at higher level or ISO 22000 is your absolute baseline. You cannot get on their shelves without it. If you choose the pharmacy route, the manufacturer must hold a paragraph 11A AMG registration, and the finished good has to carry a PZN listing. And if you want to make organic claims in the biochannel, the factory requires a specific EU organic certifier, like DE-OCO. Self-declarations do not survive audits. Ignore this mapping and you run into immediate walls. A manufacturer holding only ISO 9001 might offer you the best price per unit, but they are legally barred from shipping into top German retailers. These certifications function as a strict legal passport. Without the specific credentials required by your target channel, you simply cannot enter that part of the market. Step 3 looks at factory capacity. You need to map your 12-month volume forecast directly against the manufacturer's installed line capacity. Capacity is highly format dependent. Capsules, gummies, and powders each require entirely different dedicated filling lines, meaning they come with distinct minimum order quantities. These 2 charts show why factory size matters. If your order fills 80% of a smaller factory's total capacity, you transform into a high-priority, protected client. Take that exact same order to a massive factory, where it only accounts for 4% of their capacity, and you become a slot they will easily deprioritize during peak season. Selecting a massive prestige manufacturer is actually a strategic vulnerability if your order volume isn't large enough to command their operational attention. Step 4 shifts the focus away from the price tag. You need to verify their audit history by requesting the last 2 IFS or FSSC audit summaries and their open CAPA list. CAPA stands for Corrective and Preventative Actions. It is the documented, official record of the mistakes a factory has made and exactly how they resolve them. This scatter plot shows the golden metric. When we correlate open CAPAs to on-time delivery, manufacturers with 0 open items demonstrate a highly predictable on-time delivery reliability of about 94%. But as you move down the market to factories carrying 3 or more open CAPAs, their delivery reliability plummets below 70%. Expect resistance here. Factories don't like sharing this data, and enforcing the request will likely disqualify some of your cheaper options. Do it anyway. A clean CAPA history is the single most predictive signal of real-world on-time delivery, far outweighing the marketed price per unit. Step 5 is stress testing your formulation. Demand written, documented confirmation of all raw material origins, including traces registration and strict allergen handling. This exposes hidden timeline risks before you sign. Novel ingredients, like specific marine collagens, can carry invisible 12 to 20-week lead times of their own. You also need to secure a written stability indication. If you are going to put a 24-month shelf life claim on your label, doing so without documented stability testing is a massive recall risk. Step 6 pulls this all together. You build a structured decision matrix, mathematically scoring your final candidates across price, MOQ, lead time, certifications, format fit, and audit history. The rule to remember here is that verbal commitments from manufacturers routinely fail at scale. Only written, documented confirmations survive the transition into a binding procurement contract. Once your criteria are locked, you have to decide how your team will physically run the search. There are 3 standard execution models. DIY sourcing offers total control, but eats 80 to 120 hours and risks underqualified factories. Sourcing brokers minimize load, but a 3 to 8% commission creates incentive bias. The intelligence-led shortlist requires upfront investment, but guarantees an unbiased, pre-screened matrix. Prior category experience and internal bandwidth should be the primary drivers of your sourcing model choice, rather than budget alone. The German supplement landscape is unforgiving. You are navigating an overlapping triple layer of EU food law, German national law, and highly specific retail standards. To survive it, let your target distribution channels strictly dictate your required certifications. Let audit histories and open tapologs dictate your trust in a manufacturer's ability to deliver. And as a final critical rule, you must never let the manufacturer write or control your initial product specification. By front-loading your sourcing process with rigid, data-driven filters, you protect intellectual property, prevent operational delays, and guarantee a smooth entry into the German market.